Yeah. The one I had last night was a 13% Imperial Stout. I thought I'd have a night off. So.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone. We are live coming from Australia. Oh, I got to turn this down. It's on my phone this time. Oh. Now I got to turn this. Where is that coming from? Yeah.
So many bells and whistles, Richard.
Well, the interesting thing is, it's the audio. It's going from my interface to another interface to Skype to whatever, and it keeps coming. I always got to remember to turn it off in the browser, or you'll hear the echo. So, everybody, we are live, and we're mostly from Australia this morning. So, to my left,
three quarters, yeah.
3/4, exactly. To my left is Mr. Iain Anderson.
Oh, hi, that's me. Hi. Hello.
Yes.
How you doing?
Down in the corner, left-hand corner, is Lee Herbet.
I'd like to buy a vowel.
And right below me is Mr. Matt Goddard.
Hello. I feel like I'm Alice in the Brady Bunch.
There you go. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're here to talk about Australia, and we're also going to talk about Final Cut Pro, whatever comes up. We talk about what the heck we want to. Right now, we were just talking about the beer, right? You guys, some of you guys, do you brew at home, as you said, Iain?
No, I don't brew at home, but I actually have a brew kit, like, sitting here. Like, this is not really it, but look, there's stuff. I mean, this will have home brew in it.
I've got one
at
of
some
those.
point.
I keep quarters in one of those.
Yeah.
I throw them in to keep them.
Yeah, and when you're finished putting beer in it, you can put a ship in it as well.
There you go.
So we'll see. I look forward to it. Yeah, and I had kind of thought that, I thought the other two people in the chat were both big beer heads. Lee is not a beer head. Matt's a beer head, and Alistair's a beer head. And I thought we could do a beer tasting on thing, because I've actually been making a beer documentary, which we're still trying to sell.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. So we've got the first episode done. I've got a sizzle reel cut. We just need to sell it to the right place, because it turns out if you're not a production company, then it's a lot harder than you'd think.
Right.
But that's fine. I think I'll wait out a month of the TV stations having then nothing to show, and then just saying, hey, by the way, we've got this half-hour episode. It's cut. It's ready to go. We're shot in 4K. Are you interested? And they'll say, we don't care if we're shot in 4K, and who are you? And, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. I don't think we're too far off seeing them start to scramble for content, because I saw an ad tonight for on Channel 10 here. They had a variety show last year called Julia and Chris's Takeaway.
Right.
And it was a terrible show, didn't do very well, lasted about maybe 8 weeks. And I just saw an ad tonight for Takeaway Reheated, which is the hosts. It's a clip show of that show, which was in itself a failure. So that's on Saturday night.
That's sad. I can guarantee that my show would be better than that. Anyway, tonight I'll be drinking a Ballistic beer and Black Sheep collaboration. Ballistic's a fun Brisbane brewery who's featured in the documentary, and Black Sheep is my favorite local bottle shop. So, yay!
Right. And even though I don't drink alcohol, I'm trying to represent. I brought a ginger beer. There you
go. There you go. And
now I feel like I should go and get something from the fridge.
Yeah, from anyone watching from the Northern Hemisphere, it is 9 p.m. at night here, and we are definitely allowed to drink. It is appropriate. Apologies if you're just waking up. Enjoy a coffee.
Well, I had my cup of coffee. Now I'm having my ice, no sugar, no salt. I was having had another brand that I used to drink, and I found out it had a lot of sodium in it because it's replenishing people who are athletes and active. They had some kind of sodium, so I stopped that. I don't need the salt. Most of us don't. So is Australia like most of the rest of the world? Everything is shut down. People are staying in their homes except for walks and stuff. Is that about the same?
Yeah, Yep.
More or less, yeah. I don't think we're quite as locked down as a lot of the rest of the world, but pretty close. Like they say, if you're not an essential worker, you should be staying home. Workers should be working from home if they are still able to work.
Well, that's a benefit. Yeah, that's great.
Schools are closed unless you're the child of an essential worker, at which point you can go to school and do online school at school, like all the other kids are supposed to be doing. So that's fine. But Australia, and you guys feel free to back me up on this, seems to be doing ridiculously well from this virus at the moment, relatively speaking. It's there's not very many new cases each day. Not very many people have died, and I guess it's a lower stress situation.
That's excellent. Now, did the fire burn out some of that virus, you think? That's what I was thinking. You guys had the fire and it burned everything out.
They took turns. They waited.
Yeah, so those fires were incredible. Did they affect any of you guys in your areas?
Yep. We so I won't speak for Matt, but I know here in Melbourne, and I know Matt's in Melbourne. We had a good 2 weeks over a period of 2 or 3 weeks. We had 3 or 4 days where pretty much the air quality was so bad you were told like just don't go outside, and if you go outside, wear a mask. So on the bright side, my wife and I bought really nice masks back then, and who would have thought we need them sooner than we thought?
Exactly. I actually bought, I actually have the N95 mask for when I'm mowing grass. I have an acre and a half, and I have this zero-turn riding lawnmower, and that thing really, I ride at full speed most of the time. And it throws up grass dust and pollen from the oak trees, so I always wore those masks to keep from breathing that stuff. And then 2 years ago at the FCPX Creative Summit, they said, bring the N95 mask. And I looked at my box and I said, I have N95 masks. I didn't know they were N95. I never paid attention to the rating until that Creative Summit. So I actually brought some to that one and to the last one, but I didn't use them either time.
Yeah, that's right. It was really smoky or really terrible air quality, one of those, wasn't it?
2 years ago. 2 years ago. You could wake up and, you could see it.
Yeah, in San Francisco, Lee, where we couldn't see more than a few blocks away. Yeah, and stupidly that still went walking.
Yeah. Well, that was like I remember that. Yeah, and we got to the hotel. We were like, let's go for a walk. We're in San Francisco. It's an adventure, and we spent like 3 or 4 hours walking around the city. We get back to our hotel room, turn on the TV, and they're like, nobody go outside. Don't breathe. We're like, oh dear.
Yeah.
Whoops. Yeah, I held up that mask just before. We got them from, I think my mother-in-law bought them for us during the bushfires, and it's still in its plastic. So, but it'll probably get some use at some point. I mean, those bushfires at the beginning of the year, I was working on productions that had to change the way they shot because they couldn't have people outside for long periods of time. So it was, it's a similar situation now, but we are, like Ian said, it's been relatively mild here, I guess, compared to what we're seeing on the news of other countries.
Right. They just announced in Maryland, the governor just announced that everybody that goes outside is to wear a mask now. A month ago they said, masks don't help. They probably hurt more than they help. And then they've transitioned slowly. Oh, actually, common sense says a mask helps some, right? It's just common sense.
Yeah. Although I suppose the challenge is, and again, this sort of applies to the industry that we work in from the perception point of view, where, it's a fine line to walk where they don't want to say, wear a mask and you'll be fine, because then people will think, oh, I'm fine, I'll wear a mask, I can do whatever I like. But in the same regard, I mean, what they should be saying is like, it can't hurt to wear a mask. You may as well wear it. It may help, but don't think that that's going to protect you entirely. So,
Yeah. It's a bit of a tricky one. There's lots of reasons, the reasons not to do it are the medical professionals need the real masks. So if you're going to make a homemade mask and wear it, then that's fine. But it's really, if it's not a good mask, like if you haven't got a couple of filters in there, then it's not going to stop the virus coming into you. And it will stop you making other people sick if you're sick and don't know it, which is a good legit reason to do it. Yeah. But it doesn't help at all if you come home and then handle the mask.
Exactly. Exactly.
There's rules with all PPE.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, finally, my paranoia is really paying off. So, look, it's also my wife and my son are both asthmatic, so we were taking this fairly seriously a month, maybe even 5 weeks ago. So we pulled my son out of daycare like a week or two before everyone else sort of started doing that. And I just, again, I know I'm kind of paranoid, but just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. So in terms of the precautions that we're taking, if we go shopping, we wear a mask. We've got hand sanitizer. We've got little things of hand sanitizer on our key rings. So, just before I put on my mask, sanitize my hands. When I take the mask off, sanitize my hands. We've got sanitizer spray and wipes at the front door. So anything that gets delivered, we wipe it down, all that kind of stuff. So, and yeah, I mean, it's with all of that, you could, like I was talking about this with my mother tonight, you could do all these things and something could still get through, but you can only do what you can do, So I think take every precaution you can, and yeah, the rest you leave to fate, I suppose.
Right. Now, I was talking with Chris Fenwick a couple weeks ago, and we both were very sick in January. I think he was sick right after the Creative Summit, and we had symptoms of this, the exact symptoms, which were unusual for me. The loss of appetite, the loss of smell, and some of the other things, high fever. There was a very unusual illness. Mine was January the 14th because I went to the doctor, and I looked up the date. That's when I went. Wow. And other people are also reporting that they think that in our local community, that they think that they had it in those days. So,
you could have.
Well before,
I guess. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna take one of the tests, the antibodies test, after everything gets over, that you can see if you did have it, just because I think I did. So, and I did survive, but it was pretty miserable if it was indeed that. So,
it's going to be really interesting to see how it all shakes out. And I think here in Australia and definitely New Zealand, New Zealand's chasing eradication because they've got so few cases that they, if they can get no new infections for a couple of straight weeks, which they're pretty close to, then, that's it. There's none in New Zealand. And it still means they need to keep the borders closed until there's a vaccine, but then they're done. And Australia's not too far off that. I mean, total, there were, 47 new cases today.
Well, that's great.
Total, the whole country. Great. So that's okay. Let's see. But I mean, they've said there's no changes for 4 weeks. So we're under whatever we're doing now for another 4 weeks at least. We'll see.
That'll be the dilemma as we get closer to it looking like we're okay, as to the calls that go out to kind of start opening things up again and whether we spike again.
It's hard. It's hard because it'll be gentle.
Sure, exactly.
The restart will be gentle, and the thing is, if you're when they were tightening the screws, like my local pub, they just had no customers when they could open because people didn't want to go out. And it'll be just the same if they're allowed to go out, but people still potentially have the virus, then it won't be busy and it'll just be, well, we're open, we're not making any money. They'll
be tiptoeing out. People will just be a little bit at a time. But that's the way it's going to be around here for sure, at least some of the people. Now, one of the things in Maryland, they have this thing called essential services. And one of the essential services that I questioned were liquor stores. Mm-hmm. That is an essential service?
Essential service. Essential services.
Really. Yeah.
Sorry. Yes.
Well, it's almost cultural in Australia, but and
I think
that and domestic abuse. I mean, they go hand in hand. So
Yeah. That's what people said. You don't want people going through withdrawal if during the time.
Yeah. I think if you add up the effect on society, then if they shut all the liquor stores, then there was already a boost in domestic violence.
There would be riots
with people having to stay at home with abusive partners. It did happen. So that would absolutely go up higher if they stopped selling alcohol. It's
Does anybody in Australia not drink alcohol?
Yes, Lee.
Oh, Lee.
Hey. But I'm only a permanent resident. I'm not a citizen.
Oh, okay.
This is why he's failed the citizenship test.
That's one of the
over.
test questions. How
And
much
I don't
alcohol?
drink coffee, and they let me live in Melbourne, which is even a bigger deal.
Yeah.
I don't understand you.
There's two people that I've learned not to trust over the years. Number one is somebody who doesn't drink coffee, and number two is somebody who has no cavities, because I don't trust something's going on with. I've met a few people that don't have cavities.
Well, I got plenty of cavities, so I'm halfway to be trustable.
Okay,
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, I have no cavities, but I do drink coffee, so I'm halfway.
There you go.
Yeah. I don't know, the idea of closing bottle shops here would be kind of. I guess it'd be in Melbourne. If you closed a coffee shop, you'd have the same problem, because at the moment, those cafes that were operating, my small local cafe is still open for takeaway coffee, and they're selling drinks and their cakes and stuff. But there's maybe like 6 or 7 people are going there when they used to have 30 or 40 in the morning.
Yeah.
So even though they're still operating, it's still not.
But the service is amazing. Like, my wife ordered some coffee online, and the order got messed up, and it was Good Friday the next day. So this was like at 3:00 on Thursday afternoon, and she was not a happy camper, thinking she was going to spend the whole weekend without coffee. And she put a thing out to like a local coffee shop who said, we're doing deliveries. And like half an hour later, they were at our door. There's the coffee.
Mm. Yeah, and that's the beautiful kind of silver lining of it. But when you think about it, like, they're able to do that because they literally have nothing else to do.
Yeah.
We had a similar thing with the coffee shop up the road from us. We ordered a couple of kilos of beans to kind of get us through the next month or so, and we said we'd go and pick them up. And then the next time we opened our front door, they were there on the doorstep.
It's interesting. Just that made me think of something just slightly related. So I put out. So we've got a local Facebook group for like our neighborhood. Like our postcode is 3165. So we've got the 3165 Facebook group, and I don't know about you guys, but my work is almost. I mean, I've got some editing work, but 90% of my income comes from production work, not just the editing side of it, but shooting stuff as well. Right. And not that I wasn't consciously aware of it, but I very quickly noticed that about 90% of my clients are overseas. So about 2 months ago, everything got cancelled or postponed or put off. So I didn't have a lot of time and not a lot of work. And luckily for me, last year was a particularly good year, so I've got plenty of savings, and we're fine financially, at least for the next 9 months or so. But so I put a thing out on my local neighborhood group saying, hey, I'm sure there's a lot of cafes or restaurants or places like that are absolutely doing the right thing in terms of you're wearing masks and gloves while you're preparing the food and you're doing that, and because I know I'm anxious or nervous about ordering takeout because I don't know how it's been prepared and all that kind of stuff. So if anyone, any coffee shop, anyone out there in the neighborhood is doing it like this, and you want to help promote yourselves by doing this, let me know. I will come in, I'll follow all the precautions, but I will come in and shoot a video for you guys so you can help promote your thing. Obviously for free. Like, I'm not charging for that. I just want to do it as a community service. And the weird thing is, like, I don't understand people. Like, I had like tons of comments going, "Oh, that's so generous. Oh, that's so great." Nobody took me up on it.
Huh.
And I actually like put out another like, "Hi, anyone still in?" And nothing. I don't. Anyway, just thought I'd mention maybe interesting thing.
A lot of places just won't have that Facebook or Instagram infrastructure. They're not ready to use a video or anything like that. I mean, it's a good time to be a solo person. Like, I shoot myself, I edit stuff I shot myself, and I lost a bunch of upcoming conferences. They're all cancelled.
Right.
But if you work on a big set, that's the thing which isn't really happening. I think that's you, Matt. You're more set based.
Yeah, I mean, the sort of the 50-50 work of that onset stuff. I've been on Neighbours, the soap opera that's been going. They just celebrated their 35th anniversary, and it's crazy. It's crazy. They had a giant cake and we all got hats. But they have an Easter hiatus for 2 weeks. They brought their hiatus forward by 1 week. So 3 weeks off instead of 2. And then at the end of last week, they decided they were going to shut down production until at least the end of April. And that's a show that's, it just churns out episodes. But they're about 12 weeks ahead of their air date. But if they don't produce episodes, then the channels that buy them don't pay for them.
Sure.
And therefore there's no money to produce more episodes. So the problem is not shutting down as such. The problem is being able to restart in 3 months from now and having the cash flow to kind of pick everyone up again.
I did have a crazy thought, is that if Australia is actually ready to restart sooner than America is, because I know there's people who want to restart and then there's actually can restart without killing people. Right, exactly. If Australia's ready to restart and actually run a set before other English-speaking countries who have film studios are, then I could actually see some Hollywood movies filming in Sydney and the Gold Coast and wherever else there's a film studio with a crew here. They could fly in their Hollywood stars, get them a couple of weeks quarantine, and make movies again. And presumably all the writers have had time to write stuff at home. It's not crazy it could happen.
Yeah, I mean, so we had, at the moment in Queensland, they're doing, Baz Luhrmann's doing the Elvis biopic, which has been famous because Tom Hanks got COVID-19 and then they had to shut down.
Right.
Yeah. And, America's Dad being the most famous one of their patients is kind of crazy. In Sydney, so when Marvel shut down all their production in America, that also affected the productions that were happening in Sydney. So they're shooting Shang-Chi that comes out whenever it comes out. Now they've delayed all the release dates. So they shut that down. And Netflix had a show shooting in Melbourne called Clickbait that was 3 weeks away from finishing their production. They've been shooting for 4 months or something, and they shut down with 3 weeks to go purely because they came under the umbrella of Netflix shutting down their production. So they couldn't shut down everything everywhere and then just leave one show in Australia. They just had to cut everything. So if we do get to reopen sooner than other countries, there are productions that are, they're ready to go. And if and hopefully those crews that are waiting around for those shows to start up again haven't had to go and get new full-time jobs somewhere else to pay the rent, because the flow on of it is with the government subsidy that we have here, Richard. The way that the government's played it is to give everyone a dollar amount to try and keep them connected to their jobs.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we've done the same thing in the U.S. now. We have there's two things. Number one, we get some kind of a $1,200 check. Everybody gets that. And then they've extended unemployment to even independent contractors and part-time people, and they've extended that to a lot of the jobs that normally wasn't available. Yeah. So that's really good. Yeah.
Although the devil's in the details.
Of course.
Of course. And Matt and I are in a little chat group here in Melbourne that was discussing this quite a lot in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
So for example, how it works is that if your company, if your revenue is down by 30%, you're supposed to get this dollar amount. I think it's $1,500 per employee per fortnight. And it should work whether your company is, incorporated, blah, blah, trust, what have you. But so for example, I probably won't be able to get it, at least the way it looks at the moment, because my company is a trust. And because I don't regularly pull a salary, like if I was pulling a salary out, like if I was paying myself $1 a month, that would still count. But the way my finances are worked out, my wife's job sort of covers the expenses, and then my company, when we need money, we pull it out, but otherwise I just leave the money in the business. And because I don't draw it out regularly, the way my accountant thinks it works is that means I may not qualify.
Right.
But then he called me the next day and said, wait, I've reread it. I think you might qualify. Apply anyway and see what happens.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's lots of gray areas, and there's basically the whole film and TV industry here is in a great big gray area because they don't work for companies as such. They work for film or television entities that, for the most part, are companies created for the sole purpose of creating that show, and then they disappear. And people go contract to contract, or they're casual employees, and it's a whole mess.
Yeah, it's disappointing. Not everyone's going to get it. And, a lot of people who work on sets and do full-time film and TV are going to fall precisely through all the cracks. Yeah. Like, I'd qualify because I'm a simple sole trader, and I would qualify. I think the details that I need to check out aren't out yet, but I'm pretty sure I'd qualify. But yeah, look, it was kind of a quick thing. I think they've probably got most of it right for most people, but not for everyone. So if you're a casual worker who hadn't been employed for a year for the same company, you can get the basic unemployment benefit, and that's it. You don't qualify for this thing.
Unless your partner earns a certain amount, which mine does by $1,000.
Yeah.
If your partner earns more than, I think it's some $80,000, then you don't qualify for the unemployment benefit, but you can still qualify for JobKeeper, which is the one which is for companies and sole traders and everybody else. So if you're an employee for a company that doesn't exist for more than a year, or hasn't existed, or you just got your job recently,
which is most people in the film industry.
Exactly.
Which is ironic, because with everyone stuck at home right now, all the content they're enjoying, all the people that created that content, unfortunately, are falling into this crack.
Yeah, it's a good time to have diversified. And
well, that's true.
Yes.
That's true.
If you're diversified,
So Matt, what is that shirt you got on? It looks familiar.
Oh, yeah, it's my off the track shirt.
It looks like this shirt.
Wow, I should have got mine.
Sadly, I don't have one of those shirts. But
you don't? How did you not get one? You've been at the summit every year. I know.
Hang on, I've got the sticker.
Oh, there you go.
Also, you were in the movie, so that helps.
In the movie. So it's okay. I don't need the sticker.
You can always just frame a screen grab of the movie and stick it behind.
I should do that. Yeah. It's a good movie. Everyone watching should go watch Off the Tracks from offthetracksmovie.com.
That's right.
Yeah, I could have my friend Iain was in this movie, and all I got was this lousy T-shirt.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, I got a T-shirt too. I should have brought mine with me. So, do you guys think once this is over for a few weeks, there's going to be a lot of work in the film industry and TV industry? You think it's going to just take a while to ramp up?
I think it'll take a little while. Yeah.
Okay.
It'll take, because the people that had stuff planned and had cancelled have to reorganize. So all that pre-production has to start again and the trickle on of, especially for my work when I'm not on set doing stuff, the editing work, mine is a definite trickle down. Like, I've got to wait for
filming,
the capacity of the people that I work for to shoot stuff, and then get to a point where they need somebody to help them cut it.
Yeah, and I think it also depends on the project. Like, so my big project that I was working on this year was, and just like Iain, we've shot a pilot. I finished editing it. In fact, I'm probably going to be releasing it on YouTube in the next couple of days. We shot a pilot for a travel show.
Oh dear.
How's that for timing?
Perfect timing. Timing. What else? Right? Maybe an airline would be maybe a little bit better than that. If you shot
so the irony was I shot this pilot. I was going to pitch it to some airlines that I've done some work for. So I might hold off on that for a little while.
Yes.
It's actually if I do say so myself. So like, and again, this is one of the, don't leave things, like I had this idea like 2 years ago and it's been, bubbling around in my brain. And it wasn't until about 3 or 4 months ago that I just got off my ass and said, you know what, the hell with it. I'm just going to shoot it myself, produce it myself, and just make it happen and pitch it to people because I think it's a great concept. And yeah, I probably should have done it a bit sooner. But so, yeah, it's basically, it's a travel show, but based around photography. And the cool side of it is we shot the whole thing on iPhones. And if I didn't tell you that, you wouldn't know that it was shot on iPhones. And I've already shot 3 behind the scene videos explaining how we overcame some of the technical challenges that we faced to make that sort of work. But on the other side, I just had a job come in like about a week ago that we're shooting in a week or two that is for a medical parts company where normally they have salespeople who go around the country presenting their products to nurses and doctors and stuff. And obviously they can't do that now. So now they're looking at producing sales videos to promote them. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but for me, there is still a little bit of work, but there's definitely not nearly as much out there. And I agree with everyone else where I think it's going to take, I think it'll get back, but it's going to be a slow burn to get there.
I had a job just before the semi-lockdown that we have now, which was for a medical company so that they could do telehealth for the next, few months when they can't see patients. So it was, a day of showing people how to do exercises, things like that. And look, that kind of work I could actually still do as long as it's with one other person in the room at the moment, because gatherings than 2 people are not allowed. So there are actually ways to do some of the things that I have been doing as productions, but you've got to be a little careful about how you do it. So there are possibilities, but sets and anything are out. So I'm happy at the moment that I have diversified, because I've got to create a new video training course on Adobe Illustrator, and I've been writing a book about Final Cut Pro, which is going to be coming out at some point this year, hopefully.
Is that self-published, Iain, or is that from a company?
Well, no, I was actually asked to write it, so it will be published by an actual publisher, and they'll print real copies of it, and it'll be kind of textbook sized. So I'm about a third the way through, so we will see how that goes.
And you want to wait for the new version of Final Cut before you finish, because everything's going to change.
Ideally, but it doesn't matter what you're doing. Nobody from Apple will tell you, hey, look, there's a new release coming out soon. You might want to just hold off on that. So, look, it depends. Like, I can finish the book, and if a new version comes out, then I know I've got a week of revising before it'll actually finally go to print. But
let's have a little poll here. Who thinks a new version of Final Cut's coming out in 2020?
Probably.
2020. In 2020, I mean, you got 9 more months, 8 more months.
A new version.
A new version.
I think we're due kind of a 10.5.
10.5. But recently, we were on one of the groups, and Tom Walsky said, what if it's not 10.5? What if it's something else? Because this is the 10-year cycle that they talked about. And it's been a long time. It's 28 months now since 10.4 was released.
We may have to finally pay for it again.
Yes. I was privy to hearing somebody in authority saying that there's a stock consideration about charging for Final Cut. The stock, something to do with the stock, trading of stock and stuff. So we very well could see a charge, not if it's maybe 10.5, but if it's something new. And, would any of us object to 9 years of free updates and then we pay for one?
Fair enough.
I mean, there will be complaints, of course.
I'd pay for it again happily.
Yeah. Don't say that, Matt.
The people that'll complain the most are the people that just bought it. Like, if you bought it in the last 6 months.
They'll probably have some kind of a grace period, I would think. Like the last year or so, I would think. We're not saying that they will, but I'm saying that they could. They could.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely. I think it's just been.
I agree with you.
Fact that all of the system updates have been changing so much behind the scenes that the Final Cut team has just had to tread water to keep everything, as it was. And look, that could be continuing if the Mac's going to shift to, ARM chips. Then maybe we'll see. Again, no new really meaningful updates, but we'll see a version of Final Cut on a new Mac that comes out this year or next year, which runs on ARM chips, and who knows?
Right. So we got a few comments.
I don't think we're seeing it on the iPad, though.
We got
really don't see that happening.
A few comments. Says, hello, Australia, from Gert Cracked. And we have hi, guys, from the UK, from PWP Weeks 123. And then Gert asked, what you're using Filmic Pro with those iPhones, Lee?
Oh, well, you'll have to watch my behind-the-scenes
there
videos.
You go.
But no, I was using Filmic Pro, yes.
Okay. I had the guy from Filmic Pro on, Neil, yesterday. It was great interview with him and Terry from LumaFusion.
Yeah, Filmic's a great app. I have some suggestions, but
send them in.
Really good to use.
Send them in. The only suggestion that I have, I have the iPhone 11 Pro Max, and the ability to change the lenses while you're shooting video is fantastic. You can actually switch from one lens to the next lens to the next lens, and they do a blend from one lens to the next. It's not a cut. Apple does that in their native photo app. I don't know if anybody else is going to have access to that, but I use that all the time. I just zoom in and zoom back out again while I'm filming. I know you can do it after you stop filming and go back, but while filming is really, really cool. So, do you guys use that app they have out? What is it called? The one with the 4 screens?
The one to flip it. I've had to play with it, but I haven't had a need for it yet.
Right.
Oh, double take?
Double take. That's it. Yes. Yeah, double take. It's going to stay there for a while, it seems like. Perhaps it's not going to be incorporated into Filmic Pro, just going to be a separate app for the time being.
Mm.
And
it's an interesting concept. Like the idea of shooting both the front and back camera at the same time has its benefits if you're in certain situations, but in terms of, I don't know,
the angle.
I feel like when I first saw it, like the angles are all off.
Right, exactly. Both angles, getting both angles is unnatural. It's an unnatural framing.
We're educated. Like screen education says that if you're watching two people talk and you're not participating,
it's the 180-degree rule.
Somebody is sitting here, and somebody is sitting here. Like it's. So how do you shoot that with one camera?
Some fancy sort of mirror system that you put on the one lens.
Yeah, like if an iographer comes out with something that
wait a minute, they could do it in software. What if in software they just put a feature where you could flip the image of one of the cameras?
Yeah,
so instead of you being on the right, you'd be on the left.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but the angle's off.
Yeah, well,
so
I can't fix everything, man. I'm sorry. Meet me halfway here. Come on.
The lens angle is.
Yeah, I know.
Like, you got two lenses like that.
Yeah. But the neat thing is that it's available. I mean, I'd rather have it available than not have it available. So Filmic was really on the ball about getting that incorporated. Although the restriction on Apple is. He calls it multicam, because I talked to him yesterday about this, is Apple only allows 1080p videos in multicam at this point. They probably he said they probably need a faster processor and a software update to do 4K, because I was amazed that all 4 cameras on the iPhone are 4K. They have 4 cameras, and all 4, including the front-facing one, is 4K. And yet the 2019 MacBook Pro is only 720p, the camera.
Yeah, it's down to thickness of the cameras. And I suspect the reason they're not allowed to do 4K on both of the angles is probably the front-facing camera wouldn't support it anyway. And if you did 2 rear-facing cameras, the data rate would be too high for the phone to be able to reliably record in all situations. That would be my suspicion for that.
Right.
But yeah, unfortunately, most webcams are just, there's not enough space, and there is no excuse for the iMac. They have space for that to be much better.
But you're right. But the iMac Pro has 4K. I mean, 4K, doesn't it? 1080p. I'm sorry, 1080p.
1080p,
right?
yeah. But I mean, look, that just leaves room for people like you and I, Richard, to plug in a nicer camera and a little box.
Yeah, Ian's shooting on his GH5.
You have one of those. You have one of those, Lee, don't you? You had
I've got
a very
the
nice video
camera
out about that recently.
Yeah, I know. I should be using my good camera, but it's on the shelf behind me, and I just.
Yeah.
Speaking of on the shelf behind you,
I'm using the postage stamp inside my 6-year-old laptop.
Speaking of on the shelf behind you, Lee, are those Final Cut Pro training books on the back?
Yeah, those are all of my train. I am certified to train you in all of those. Most of it really outdated stuff. Yeah.
I think I recognize a number of those colors, and I've chucked them out myself.
Yeah, I'm going to start doing the same.
I'm not going to teach anyone Final Cut Server anymore.
No.
I'm not going to teach anybody Motion 1.0. They're all sadly gone.
So I offered last week on Twitter and Facebook to review anybody that has Final Cut Pro 10.5 tutorials for free. But it only applies this week only. This week I'll review them for free, but no offers so far.
I was going to call you next week, but yeah.
And then Sean Lander came in and said, well, I would do that, but I'm on Final Cut Pro 11. That's what he said. Started that conversation. Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys, are you using Final Cut Pro 10 in your production and stuff? I mean, your post-production? Everybody is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I finally figured out how to take a screenshot, including high-resolution cursors, which I need for my textbook, because it's surprisingly difficult. Like, if you take a screenshot, no cursors. Even if you ask for them, you don't get them if you're in Final Cut Pro, because I have custom cursors for all kinds of things and just falls through the cracks. And if you use ScreenFlow, it records the custom cursors, but you get low-res cursors, even if you're doing a Retina screen record. So you need to use Apple's built-in QuickTime Player and do a screen recording through that, and it gets high-res cursors. So you need to record in a Retina resolution and then take a screenshot of your QuickTime movie if you want high-resolution cursors for any purpose.
Why do you think that is? Why is high-resolution cursor such an issue?
Well, I need to print them, so they need to look good.
I know you do, but why don't they record? Why doesn't ScreenFlow? You would think for sure would.
ScreenFlow, you'd think they would. ScreenFlow's been pretty good, so I should contact their support. They've helped me in the past with stuff. But they haven't really ever offered high-res cursors. I'm not sure why, because they let you blow it up.
Right.
You expand the size of the cursors, but they're not recording the high-res cursors. I think cursors must be some special case which everyone deals with differently.
It's interesting.
That is it. Because I haven't done any print stuff, so I didn't really pay attention to that.
So, Richard, how are things with you?
Me?
Yeah. How is the East Coast of the U.S.? How are you dealing with stuff?
I live outside of Baltimore and Washington, north of D.C. and northwest of Baltimore. But I live, it's used to be country-ish, so now it's a little bit more suburban, but there's still 100 acres, 200-acre farms out here with cows and stuff, so it's not quite so bad as the inner cities and stuff. And I go shopping early in the morning, once a week, and the shelves are always stocked. Everything is stocked. Meat, the only thing that's not stocked for some odd reason is toilet paper. I don't know why, of all the things. I mean, everything else is stocked. Meat is plenty of vegetables and fruits and cheeses and breads and eggs and all that stuff. But when I go there, this one shot I have is this one lonely pack of toilet paper on this completely empty shelf. And it's just like, I don't know. I don't understand that. Maybe
years from now, psychologists and historians will be getting together to try and work out what the heck people were thinking.
I have some suggestions, but I can't use that kind of language on this program.
Well, you probably can, as long as it's not too bad.
No, it's yeah. I'm as baffled as everyone else.
So Maryland has a very aggressive governor, Governor Hogan. So Maryland is a very Democratic state. It always has been because of Baltimore, Prince George's County, Montgomery County. These are very populous, but the Republican governor that now. And he's very, very popular. He's very popular because he works across the aisle and gets things done. And he's been very aggressive. So he just announced everybody has to wear masks outside, at least in stores and stuff. I'm not sure if it applies to running and walking because I don't really like to wear a mask when I'm running and walking. That's, it gets all hot and sweaty. And then you have teenage acne when you come home. So I have to find out if it applies to walkers and runners. So I started a podcast a couple weeks ago interviewing people as to what they're doing in my area as far as what they're doing during this crisis. Interviewed a distillery guy, and he's converted making liquor to making hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
So that was pretty fascinating. And then we also have a Facebook group where a bunch of people are sewing masks for local hospitals, local EMS, fire, rescue. They started a whole group, and all they do is just sew the mask and give them out. They have like 8,000 or 9,000 so far. They've only been in existence for a few weeks. Yeah, so I've been going around that. And of course, I can't do it now, unless I see somebody on a walk. If I can't drive somewhere. I used to drive to their house, but I made them come outside. I'm not going in your house. I'm sorry. Come outside to the front yard, side yard. We'll film out here. And I was set up for that. But now, of course, I can't, drive somewhere. So if I'm on my walk, I can talk to people, if I see somebody there, or if I make an arrangement for two people to go out on a walk at the same time.
Yeah.
So
there's whole new arrangements for very long boom poles.
Yeah. Now, luckily,
And,
exactly. Well, I use this. If it's me, I use a medium shotgun for the front, and then I have a mic, either the Go Wireless Pro, or whatever for myself. That seems to work pretty well.
Yeah, I love the wireless Go. I was thinking about using it for this setup, but
Right.
I've got the shotgun there. And if you take some alcohol wipes, then just wipe it over, in view of your client, leave it on a space, back away, tell them to clip it on. They've mic'd themselves up. Everyone's got good audio. It's safe for everyone, and wipe it down when you're done.
Right.
And that's part of the mobile lapel interview kit now, I think. There's no technical knowledge required, really.
And no touching anybody right now. They're 6 feet away, so that's what you have to do. So that's what I've been doing. We've been doing pretty well here. I've been working from home for over 3 years, and my girlfriend, who's been doing it for years and years, and sure, she's still working, and I'm not working like I was. I absolutely lost some revenue, like everybody else did, but I'm okay. We own our house and stuff, so. Well, the bank owns a little bit of it. We own about 2/3, and they own about 1/3. So we're hoping at some point.
At least they're not living with you, so you're okay.
Well, that's true. Not right now. Maybe that'll be part of the deal. I hope not. So, yes or no? Final Cut Pro on the iPad. Is that going to happen?
No.
Lee?
No.
Lee already has it. Look, he's being coy. He already has Final Cut Pro on the iPad.
Well, you know what I say. Those who don't know will talk about it, and those who know won't say a thing. But no, I've got no idea. I would like it on the iPad, or maybe a version of you know what? I would just like Luma Touch with a magnetic timeline. I'd be fine with that.
Well, it has.
But it's not exactly like.
No, it's not exactly.
And I'm, if I always say, if you're going to dream big. So, if I'm going, this is what I want is the magnetic timeline like I'm used to in Final Cut Pro 10 in Luma Touch. Because I think other than, and I'm sure there's either technical issues or legal issues or whatever, but I'm sure if they could, they would. But that's such a big part of cutting in Final Cut.
Right.
But other than that, I think Luma Touch does such a great job already Like it's a fantastic app
Absolutely.
on a mobile device.
It's on sale for 3 days for $20.
Yeah, that's still anyone who doesn't have it should go out.
3 days for $20.
I don't have it, and I spoke to the Lumitouch people at the summit last year, and they seemed like lovely people who've done a great job.
They are.
But for my money, it's like
$20. How many?
No.
Well,
I know,
but that's $20 US. You should see what that's in our.
Oh,
prices.
okay, that's true.
It'll
How
be
many
30
beers
or
is that, Iain? How many beers?
That's
a good way to
one
position
beer.
it.
6-pack and a half.
Oh, there you
No, I think that the issue for me is
3
that
hangovers.
I want to use a real camera and I want to use storage. So if the latest iPad Pro had 2 USB-C ports, and yeah, I know you can get one with the external keyboard.
Sure.
But really, if I could actually charge it and use an external drive at the same time, then I think Apple might be planning on taking this somewhere else. But at the moment, the cost of an iPad Pro plus the fancy keyboard with the extra port is a Mac.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing. But really, the user interface, like I think Final Cut's interface as it stands is too focused on, a pointer for it to work in a touch environment. That's iMovie. We have it already, and I don't know how I would put all the Final Cut stuff into an interface that has to work with a finger. Like if it could only work with a mouse, which of course you can do now and is very useful,
Right.
then maybe. But I don't think Apple would want to make something like LumaFusion have. I think that's too fussy an interface for Apple to want to make.
Well, also just FYI, Iain, you can't edit off of an external hard drive on the iPad. If you want to edit on the iPad, you can have your footage start on an external drive, but you've got to copy it onto the iPad, which is, that was a big reason. Like I was working on a project where I wanted to use Lumitouch, but I couldn't because there was just going to be more footage than my iPad could hold. And that's an operating system thing. Like it's not their fault.
We're so quickly going to get too much footage for our iPad to hold. It's the reason I don't shoot much stuff on the phone, because the phone will fill up. I can't swap a battery out. I can't put in a media card. If I could record to an external media card on my iPhone, I would do it 15 times more than I do. It's just that simple. It's too hard to get things on and off.
One of the good things
I
about
do long recordings, an hour at a time.
Sure.
In a single cut. And
one of the good things about LumaFusion is, well, there you go, is when you're going through the browser, it's on your hard drive. And you can choose an in and out point, and once you drag it to the timeline, that's when it gets imported. So it only chooses the in and out point. And speaking of that, LumaFusion has like 5 or 6 features that Final Cut Pro doesn't have. They can batch export with handles.
Right.
Okay, natively. One of the main things I really like, they had that overview timeline under the viewer that shows you the entire timeline with all the tracks, little mini view. It's like the bar on the MacBook Pro, but it's always the full view of the full timeline, so you always can see the full timeline, and you can actually scrub that, and your main timeline will go with it.
If you want that in Final Cut Pro, you need Command Post, and then you can get it on the top and bottom of your viewer all the time.
That does have it?
Yeah. The viewer you get in the touch bar, that little mini timeline,
exactly,
can go into the regular viewer in anyone's Final Cut if you use Command Post to activate it.
Yep.
Do you use Command Post all the time?
Yeah, I do. I use Command Post to do color correction. So I use this to do color correction. So, yeah. What's that? There's, 2 variables on highlights, 2 variables on mids, and then 4 of these sliders do exposure and 4 do saturation.
Okay.
So they work really, really, really well. And then you can, of course, set the other buttons to go previous clip and next clip, and copy from previous, copy from 2 clips back, copy from 3 clips back. And and set up one of these other dials to do timeline zoom. It's amazing. Something like this with Command Post just makes you so much faster.
And that little MIDI interface is what, like $80?
Like $80.
It's really inexpensive. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Which in US dollars would be like 40.
Yeah. So it's like a Korg Nano Control 2. This is the cheapest one I could find, which has this many dials. You really need 12, at least 10 separate controls. I don't care about color controls Nice.
And if you want more dials, they make a bigger one.
That's cool. Yeah. I don't care about color controls on globals or shadows, so I don't use all the dials for that.
Okay.
But just the 4 of these. So definitely get Command Post. If you want to do hardware color grading, this is awesome. And send them a donation because they deserve it.
They certainly do. Chris Hawking has been doing that for years and years. Whenever I have him on the show, he says, is this a hobby? I said, well, you deserve to get some money for it. You should be doing something. I mean, all these years and how many hours? He said, I don't want to think about that. But speaking of timeline zoom, wouldn't you like to have timeline zoom presets in Final Cut where you can store your zooming? Like in Logic, you have 3. And I have the keyboard set up so I do 2 keys to set the zoom, and then 3 keys to set the zoom, and then 2 of the same keys to go to the different zoom levels.
I think I'm happy with Command plus and minus, and you can use Command Post to do, I think, Option scroll wheel to make it zoom, which works really well in ScreenFlow, but has never quite worked well in Final Cut. It's just a way they deal with the scroll wheel. But you can set up one of these to do timeline zoom, and then it's as smooth as dragging the slider, which is a very different experience.
Right.
So I would recommend that. If you've got any kind of hardware thing you can test out, hook it up to timeline zoom, because even if you don't want to do color grading, it's going to be much smoother than anything else. Yeah. So I probably wouldn't use presets myself.
Yeah, I do.
I think saying that now, I think having not used presets, I would say that I wouldn't use them. But then if I had them, I would probably find a use case for it. Because at the moment, you're all got things with lots of buttons on it. That's.
I have one of those too.
You can do a pinchy scope thing.
Yeah, and I can do the pinch to zoom, and I use Better Touch Tool that it looks like one button, but it's this corner and this corner and this corner.
Right. Can you do zoom?
I'll probably put some presets on it.
Can you do zoom levels in Better Touch Tool? Can you save them presets?
Oh, look, I don't actually know. I haven't tried to do that.
Because I in Logic,
I'm so used to pinch to zoom.
In Logic, I have but I have an hour timeline, hour and a half timeline. Pinch to zoom, I'm pinching, zooming, pinching, zooming, pinching, zooming, where I can do a preset that shows the entire timeline, just like Command Z does, and then I can do a mid-level, and then I can do a much more zoomed in one for more precise editing without zooming, without plus minus, Apple Plus. I don't even have Apple Plus anymore. I just use single keys for zooming because I do it so much in Final Cut. So
I think Shift Z is probably the keyboard shortcut I use the most.
Yeah,
because it works everywhere. It works in timeline, it works in the viewer.
Single key shortcuts are great. That is a good. And I know you've been in for that for a while, and it's really good. If you've got a heap of F keys along the top of the keyboard, they're mostly free to do whatever you want. And zooming in, zooming out.
But don't you have to do it multiple times, right? You got to do. Can you hold it now and it just keeps zooming? I don't remember.
Well, Shift Z is basically fit to screen. So if you want to see your entire timeline at any point, just Shift Z and there's your whole timeline.
Right.
But then if you want to go out, either Command plus or minus, or you just use the trackpad.
But does it work? But does it work if you just if you hit Command plus and then just hold it down? Does it animate in as if you were pinched to zoom?
Please hold caller. Let me try that.
Yeah, exactly.
I will check.
Yes. I've never actually tried holding it down.
Yeah. If you just keep holding down plus or minus, it just keeps going, and it does it sort of like in staggered stages.
Staggered.
So it doesn't have the smooth animation. Yeah.
So speaking of keyboard shortcuts, what are some of your favorite keyboard shortcuts? One of my favorite is Shift B. I love the blade speed.
Yeah, that's a good one. My favorite one, the one that I find, I work with some high school students every year doing some Final Cut stuff with them, and Option left bracket and right brackets to basically do a ripple delete. That always, they're like, oh, if I'd seen that a week ago, that would have saved me hours of time.
Right.
So,
my favorite ones are all custom. So I love the trim start and trim end, but I always put them on F5 and F6 because single key shortcuts.
Right.
And it's just bang, bang, much easier. But my favorite default one that I always kind of use as an example of teaching people how to use keyboard shortcuts is 0 for silence. because silence doesn't have a shortcut and 0 doesn't have any commands applied. It's like, wow, this is a match made in heaven.
I use 0 to get into to change the time code where the playhead is located. So I use 0 on the numeric keypad to open up that dialogue, and then I can type in the time code and go to the time code.
I think I used equals on the numeric keypad for that.
Okay.
As a jump to.
What about you, Matt?
It's weird.
Oh,
Do you know what keyboard shortcuts are? Do you use them?
I do. I use a lot of them, but I'm just trying to. Mine are mostly all the default ones with a couple of tweaks. I remember the day when I decided to map Command S to something because Command S was redundant.
Right.
But I remember. I think I have it as center compressor is Command S for me. So that when you're done, that's the
you save to
Final
compressor
Cut equivalent of saving, right? You save to compressor. You get rid of it. But like Shift Z is such a simple, simple one that you use it so much that you don't even realize.
No,
absolutely. I use that one all the time. So
Matt, I've got a question for you. With your keyboard shortcuts, because obviously you use a few custom ones, and you would work on multiple machines, because I know, we've worked together at different studios and stuff. Do you just have them on a USB stick? Do you keep it on your Dropbox? Like, how do you take your custom shortcuts from one machine to another?
I have both. So it sits in Dropbox for anywhere that is connected to the internet, and I'm able to get onto Dropbox to download it. And it also sits on a USB stick with a couple of other bits and pieces in my bag, so I can install it if I need to. Now that I'm thinking more about it, the ones that I have functionally changed are the speed changes. So I have Control F1, Control F2, Control F3, and Control F4 set up for 10%, 25%, 50%, and 100%, and then and another one for automatic speed, because a lot of the time I'll get footage that's been shot at high speeds, that's 50p or 100p, and without even having to think about what it's been shot at, you hit automatic speed and you're like, oh sweet, I've got this much to play with, or I've got this much. And it's also nice when somebody says, oh no, I shot that at 50p, and you're like, yeah, no you didn't.
Yeah, there you go. You can. Here's the evidence right here. So the one keyboard shortcut I wish that they would incorporate into Final Cut is keyboard shortcut to change keyboard shortcuts. So if you have 3 or 4 sets, 2 or 3 or 4 sets, you don't have to go up to the menu, drop down, go over right, and then choose it. You could just switch to the keyboard shortcuts, like the default ones if you're instructing, or if you have different sets, perhaps a couple different sets.
Yeah.
Well, you could probably add those keyboard shortcuts, because there's a system preferences way to add keyboard shortcuts to any command anywhere. So I'm going to see if it works. I've got a set of shortcuts here called Iain's shortcuts. So I'm going to go to the system preferences, keyboard, shortcuts, and then app shortcuts, and then add in one here and see if this is going to work. So I'll set Iain's shortcuts and I'll give it a really stupid shortcut of like Option Shift F19 or something. Okay. Did it work? You know what? It works. So, okay. So yeah, that works. So if you want to do it, it's Apple menu, system preferences. It's really well hidden. Keyboard. In the panes along the top, shortcuts. In the pane on the left, app shortcuts.
Right.
And then underneath the list on the left, you hit the plus. And I just set it up for all applications, but obviously Final Cut Pro would work as well. And you just need to know the name of your shortcut set.
Right.
And then hit the plus, you type it in, and you type in the shortcut you want to assign to that shortcut. And because it is visible, as a regular menu command in Final Cut, because in the Final Cut Pro menu, it works and it shows up.
Nice.
So there you go. You can
Ian,
have
you're
that.
a genius.
Apple watches this broadcast, so Apple, you guys pay
Excellent.
attention and get that as a default in Final Cut Pro 10.
Okay, can I just tell you what that worked on? Because I didn't think it would work, but I just tested it. If you set a custom workspace, I just tested it, and it works on custom. Yeah. Yes, Ian. You're awesome.
It would work the same way. Yeah.
Excellent.
So good.
Excellent. There's the tip of the show right there.
Absolutely.
You just have to remember your spelling.
Yeah, spelling's important. And I'm sure everyone has probably picked this one up already, but there are shortcuts. There are commands in Final Cut that don't have shortcuts that you need to make keyboard shortcuts up for. The two absolute killers are, where are we? If you search for color, spelt the American way, and give shortcuts to apply color correction from previous clip, 2 clips back and 3 clips back. They are amazing commands that replace the color correction on the current clip with the one from 1 clip back or 2 or 3. Fantastic for color correction. You can't do that with copy and paste effects because you have to clear effects before you paste them, and messy. Doesn't do the same thing. But apply color correction. They're awesome. Definitely apply those. And also ones you can go instantly to a playback speed. So if you hit L 3 times,
right,
it plays at 1 speed, double speed, then 4 times speed.
Right.
You can set up a shortcut to instantly play at 4 times speed, so you're not pressing LLL every time you want to quickly review footage.
Right.
Search for rate if you want to see those keys.
So who is planning on coming to NAB this year? Was planning.
It's funny. I use an app called Up in the Air, which is to book, to keep track of flights and gives you things. I got a notification today. You can check. You've got 24 hours to check in for your flight. No, I do not.
No.
Ouch.
Yes, I was supposed to fly out tomorrow.
I got an email from a booking agent a few days ago saying some airlines are opening for business in late May. It's like, no, you're not. What are you doing? This isn't happening. You're insane.
So NAB has a virtual version coming in May. Did you guys know that?
Yeah, I saw that.
It's interesting if they do that well or badly, and there's a real challenge in doing live events and exhibition space as well. There was an innovation conference here in Queensland, where I live, which was held shortly after everything got shut down, and they kept going and they did all their presentations live over video broadcasting, and they had a 3D virtual environment where you could walk around the exhibitions as well. And it's okay, this is potentially interesting, but the strength of these things is in the in-person meetings, and if we can't do that, are we interested in going to conferences? Would you guys go? Would you want to attend something virtually?
I think it depends because there's two sides. There's the NAB. I can't remember which is which, but there's the educational arm, which I think is probably going to be the majority of the virtual stuff. Mm-hmm. But then there's, like you say, the reason I go is for networking and to catch up with friends. It's a fair chunk of change to get all the way there and pay for hotels and blah blah. But I can justify it, particularly to the wife, or as I like to call her, the Minister for War and Finance, because out of the connections that I make at NAB, that has always led to at least 1 or 2 jobs that have more than paid for the trip. But yeah, that's quite literally rubbing the flesh. I think that's the right term, rubbing elbows or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Like all the stuff we're not allowed to do right now would be the reason that I would go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, meeting people, absolutely. So hopefully it doesn't affect the FCPX Creative Summit in November next year. I'm hoping.
See, here's the other thing, Richard. I can't go to America at the moment, and I don't think most foreigners can go to America, because if we were to come down with COVID-19 while we're there, our travel insurance won't cover us, and it'll cost us thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
But what about by November that wouldn't change? You don't think that's?
It'd still be a pandemic. It'll still be excluded. And that basically means even if they run the conference, there's just no way I can travel to the US for the foreseeable future. And I don't know how that's going to change, because even if it ends up being mild, just going to the hospital for a test will cost as much as a plane ticket to America.
Right.
No, it'll cost a lot more than that.
At least a plane ticket to America.
Maybe if you're flying at the pointy end.
Yeah. So it's going to be the whole international travel thing is going to be a huge limitation. I don't see myself traveling anywhere this year, with maybe like if Australia and New Zealand both managed to eradicate the disease, then maybe we could travel between those two countries. I don't see either anyone from any of these countries going anywhere else. Just there won't be the flights, and if there were the flights, there wouldn't be the health cover on the travel insurance. And
if you do get back, you're going to get stuck in quarantine for 2 weeks before you can.
Very likely a minimum of 2 weeks quarantine, which is just huge. Yeah. So no, if the summit was to run in November, I can almost guarantee I won't be there, which is sad. Maybe they do a virtual version as well, but it would have to include some kind of social element, because really that's what it's about. For me too. Like for you, Lee, it's about the meeting people and the hanging out.
Oh, absolutely.
Going to the Indian restaurant and having a meal. And not ordering too much goat biryani, I think, was the mistake too many people made.
Is that right?
Well, listen for next time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're still planning on having it in November, according to Liat, but there's no date yet or anything. And of course, that completely depends on how we open up the United States at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think a lot of other people, if you don't live in America, when you travel to the States, you've got to have travel insurance to cover your health.
Gotcha.
And COVID-19 is simply excluded from everything you could possibly buy. So there's just no way to do it. I don't know how it could possibly work.
So
maybe a US only a conference if they go ahead.
Well, that's not going to be any fun. I think you've been here to every one that I've been to so far, if not most of them.
Yeah, I missed the first one. The last 3 years, I think.
Well, the first one was in California. Was in not in Cupertino. It was somewhere else, and it wasn't. Yeah. You didn't have access to the team and stuff. The first one was an experiment. I've been to every one since then. As a matter of fact, that's where I physically met Brad Olson. We were talking prior to that about doing the documentary, and me helping him doing the documentary on the radio show. But I physically met him at that very first one, and we started filming there. So Final Cut Pro 10.5 or whatever it is, do you think Apple is going to, if they announce that at an actual event, or are they just going to slip it out like on a Wednesday morning at 7:00?
Yeah,
well, to put it, I think it'll just slip. I mean, if you think about it, they announced a new iPhone this morning.
Right.
Yeah.
If they can just slip out, if they can just slip out an iPhone, like Final Cut, I think it'd be very much on the same level.
Yeah. I think Final Cut's lucky to get, it's not as important to them as any hardware thing they might release. So that's understandably, and it's not going to get, if it might get like a footnote at the bottom of a hardware update, like if the next 13/14-inch MacBook Pro, that would be a good excuse to do something with it. But no, I know.
Although, I mean, it might tie in with something else that's going to be announced or released at the virtual WWDC.
Right. That's what I was wondering.
Again, we might sort of ride the coattails of something there.
Well, that's what I was thinking. So the next event would be WWDC, and they have talked about Final Cut there in regards to the Mac Pro. I think last year they mentioned something about an update to Final Cut coming in the fall. And was it 4 years ago at the Creative Summit? I think it was the very first one when they introduced the 2016 MacBook Pro. The day before the summit, they had the Apple event introducing the MacBook Pro and a couple of other things. And I'll never forget this. The woman casually mentions, oh, by the way, that's the new version of Final Cut Pro. just casually mentioned that, talking about Final Cut Pro. I said, wait a minute, that's what I'm coming to California for. I heck with the MacBook Pro, even though I did buy that one. So I'm wondering if at WWDC, since the NAB's, pretty much gone, they're not going to do anything there, if they might mention or just introduce, hey, this is the new version of Final Cut. Not a big deal, but just just at that point.
It might, but I think also, I almost get the feeling from a marketing point of view, the days of big announcements around big events are kind of fading away, where I think, look, this is just a vibe that I get, or what I see from what's happened over the last 6 months or so. Apple seems to be perfectly comfortable with announcing something on its own, as opposed to, and also I'd imagine for the engineering teams, it makes life a lot easier, because instead of it has to be done by this day, it's like, well, when it's done and it's right, we release it, and that's it.
Yeah, look, I can see potentially one reason why they might release a new Final Cut at WWDC is if Apple was to move to ARM Macs, and they announced that at WWDC this year, which would be something that would fit with the rumors, then they might use Final Cut as an example app for that and say, hey, look, we've got a new version of Final Cut that runs on ARM Macs. By the way, that Mac, if you've got an iPad Pro, then you can use that as a dev kit for, Mac OS 1016 for ARM chips. They might do that. That's the kind of thing where it could all, fall into place. That would be an excuse. But other than that, I think they could just release it at any time. I mean, NAB was around now, so hey, maybe it'll come out tomorrow.
Right. Well, they'll do a press release. They always do a press release for big versions of Final Cut. But I'm just thinking, you never can tell if they're going to attach it to any kind of event or not. So when they go to ARM chips, they're going to have translation of some sort for a couple of years with Intel. They did before, when they went from PowerPC to Intel. There was a couple years where they had some kind of a translator that went between the two. Remember?
Cross your fingers. Yeah, look, there's all kinds of interesting rumors, and there's a couple of ways they could go. They could say, right, the Pro Macs have an Intel chip in them as well, and the regular Macs don't, so there's different software runs on different Macs. Or they could, there's actually an interesting rumor that AMD might make an embedded chip which could be put in as part of an Apple-made die, which includes an ARM chip and an ARM chip for Intel x86 compatibility. So they may not need an Intel chip. They just have a, more basic compatibility chip actually built in at the hardware level. And to me, that makes a lot more sense, because I think they'd have a really, really hard time totally ditching Intel.
Right.
At least the whole x86 architecture, simply because people need to run at least some software that won't be updated all the time. I think the Catalina thing has been a big, difficult thing for a lot of people to shift. I mean, who's on Catalina of you guys?
No.
Well, I am on the Mac Pro because it shipped with it.
It shipped with it, of course.
I didn't have any choice. But on my MacBook Pro, no, I'm not. And I'm glad, because what was it? Oh, some of the clips that came into Final Cut, I forget what they were. They were legacy, I guess, and I couldn't import them. Went to my MacBook Pro and imported them. And they translated them. When you open it up, QuickTime translates them. And then I brought them over that way. There's a couple of other things, too, that there's no reason for me to update my MacBook Pro. I don't edit on it, so I don't need the Catalina on it. So the MacBook Pro, the Mac Pro, speaking of the Mac Pro, what happened here? The wheels are now $699. Initially, when you bought them with the Mac Pro, what happened? Is it the price flew? That said we're going to increase. $499 was ridiculous. It's not over $100 a wheel. I'm not saying they're not. I understand Mac is premium. I completely understand that. Their phones, everybody always complains about how expensive things are. That's just take that. Everybody does that. I understand. But from $499 to $699 seems incredible.
But no one's leaving their house. So what do you need wheels for?
Well, it's true. That's true.
Yeah, I don't get this one. I don't understand how that has A, been that much money, B, has increased. I mean, the stand has interesting moving parts. I don't imagine the wheels do. How much does a caster cost? This is a fancy set of 4 casters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't understand that at all.
It's more than the
And they
newest
don't have-
iPhone.
Well, but let me play devil's advocate, and this is I appreciate this is a flaky argument at best, but to put it like, think about this: how much money do you spend on a good tripod? Like a good tripod is going to cost you, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, and the reason why you can justify spending. Okay,
No,
it's going to cost me $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, and the reason why I can justify spending that kind of money on a tripod is because you're putting $50,000 worth of camera on that tripod, and if that $50,000 comes tumbling down because you put it on a $500 tripod, well, that's why you invest in such a solid tripod.
Sure.
So with that argument, think about how much money you spent on a Mac Pro, and if
really
it were to
flaky.
fall down off the wheels, it's a really terrible argument. Forget I made it.
Well,
yeah, no, that's
You don't.
Yeah.
What other? Your computer doesn't need to go on wheels.
No, it does
doesn't.
not. I didn't get
It
wheels.
does
need
if
to
you want to
prove it,
ride it
prove
like
it.
a pony.
Or if you have it under your desk and you have to, because you have to turn it. That's true. That's true. If you have it under your desk, you got to turn around. I mean, I have mine on top of my. I did not get the wheels on top of my desk right here, and I have it on a cloth, a dishcloth, so I can turn it easy without scratching the desk to get to the back. Because I'm constantly plugging things in and out.
The thing is, I don't really care how it's justified. I just think that Apple doesn't need to give Apple haters such obvious ammunition.
Yes.
It's just crazy to sell something which cannot have cost them anywhere near this amount of money for that amount of money.
Yeah,
And,
I agree.
Well, why
I don't get it.
I guess
and look, I'm happy to pay money for
Right.
a Mac. I get that
Sure.
it's value
Right.
over time, yada yada. But the wheels are not. And I'm not even a stand hater. Like, it's a nice looking stand for
Right.
an expensive piece of equipment.
Right.
But
I guess
man, I'd
my
rather buy
question
some
is
skateboards.
the increase. Why is it because of the coronavirus? Is that why the increase? I mean, initially you paid $499 if you bought it at the time of the Mac Pro. I guess they didn't say that's going to
your
be
bundle discount.
Yeah.
It's a discount
it was
for
an
handing in the
introductory
wheels
price.
that didn't have the feet that didn't have wheels.
Well,
I
that's
think.
possibly true because the stand, if you bought the wheels, are $299. If you buy the stands now, they're $299 or $199. I forget which it is, $199 or $299. If you need those, and you said, I don't want these stupid wheels. My thing rolls off my desk because there's no locks to them. But whatever. It's a very peculiar.
There's no locks on the wheels?
No, there's no locks on the wheels.
Those are extra.
They'll do that next version. There's no locks on the wheels.
It's $50 per lock, and you need one for each wheel.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, it'll turn in circles, right?
And I'm just looking at the webpage for them. There's got to be something in here that sort of, like maybe it was one of those things where the product people went to the engineers and went, look, no one's going to buy these things, so why don't you just engineer the living daylights out of these things, and it'll cost what it'll cost.
And the people that can afford them can have them, and
Well, that's it. If
everyone
you
else
can,
can just
if you
have
can
some
afford the
space.
insurance on a Ferrari, then you can afford a Ferrari.
Yeah.
I'm going to look up how much they cost here in Australia.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, this is where the Tower Mac Pro, before you configure anything, is $10,000 Australian, because we include tax in our prices and our dollars in the toilet.
Okay.
Let's see how much this would cost. Yeah, okay, great. So $600 Australian to get the wheels instead of the feet.
Uh-oh.
And they have a little question mark. Do I need wheels for my Mac Pro? And I could click it or answer the question with the 2 letters.
Right.
I've
got-
clicked it.
Wait, am I on Australian?
Ideal for moving your Mac Pro quickly and easily without having to lift it. I
I get that.
Like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess you could buy a little tray from like a hardware store that has 4 wheels on it.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
probably it's weight rated for something as heavy as the Mac
If you're
Pro.
going to be like that, Matt, just edit on a Dell, you know?
See, I have one of those. I have one of those wheelie
Be like
things
that. Why
folds
don't you?
flat. Do the wheels fold flatly? I mean, my little truck thing folds
I
flat.
could just get some crayons and draw my videos.
There you
I
go.
mean, you know.
Well, you could, but then you'd have a $7,000 tripod for like crayons, and that would probably be overkill.
So
It wouldn't be the first unwise investment I've ever made.
when I got the Mac Pro, right, I did a live unboxing video. This was shocking to me. The Mac Pro weighs about 40 pounds. The packaging was 30 pounds. It was over 70 pounds, the weight of the box, because it has 2 boxes, an outside box and it has the inside box, the Apple fancy box. And that thing, you could have thrown that thing down a set of stairs and it wouldn't have damaged anything. But the packaging was 30 pounds. So the total package was like 70 pounds. I was shocked it was that much.
Yeah, that's a lot of cardboard.
Yeah, it's a little shipping. I mean, there's difference between shipping 40 pounds and 70 pounds. There's got to be a difference. Maybe not for Apple, who gets things. So I got another question. Lee, you're very active on Instagram because that's where I got your photograph. I don't quite understand Instagram besides posting photographs yet. I'm not sure what I have an account, but what should I use it for? What should I do with it?
Well, I suppose you could. There's a whole host of different things you could use it for. So, obviously, it's some form of promotion. So, what I use it for, and I'm still a bit up in the air in terms of how, because I've got a personal account and I've got a company account, and to be honest, I just got in Afrikaans is this lovely phrase called gatvol, which is I just got tired of posting to both regularly. So I think I'm going to let the work one just kind of wither away and just keep going with the personal one and do work stuff on there. So for example, little behind the curtain stuff, all of my shoots, I make sure that I get at least 10 good behind the scene photos at every one of my shoots. And then I'm posting at least 1 photo per week on my on my Instagram channel of a behind the scenes thing. And it's amazing how that can actually lead to work. So perfect example, just 2 or 3 months ago, I was shooting a thing for a yoga studio and I was doing it with a friend of mine, and he posted a photo of, he was, cool, big camera, and post a photo. And a friend of his on Instagram said, "Oh, you're doing some video stuff. Give me a call. I've got a job for you." And that led to a nice chunky corporate job helping build a promotional video for this new office block that his company was building. So I'm not saying that you're going to get work out of it because you never know.
Right,
but
right.
The key with all social media is you've got to keep it regular. So try and build up, a stable of images that you think are going to be good to use. And like I've just got a folder in my Photos app, for Instagram. So I know, if I've got something in particular for this week, I chuck it up. But if not, I can go to that folder and say, cool, there's a cool behind the scenes photo from a shoot I did, and stick it up there. So then there's also the element of engagement. So when you're doing something, so when I'm actually on a shoot, I will then do some stories as well. So
Okay.
the stories is, the in inverted commas, the live bit. And one of the little tips that I'll give you here is don't record the story inside the Instagram app, because you've got like a time limit. And very often I'm talking about something and I get to the good bit and I run out of time, like, oh.
Right.
Record it just on the record it just on the native app and then bring it in, and then if it goes over time, it'll split it up.
Oh,
but it'll
okay.
Still play it.
That's a good tip.
Because otherwise you get so many times I've really looked my age and stuffed it up. Like it's like when your parents try and do Skype for the first time.
Sure.
So yeah, and the other thing is obviously you want to tag and do hashtags as well. More than 5, less than 10 would be my advice on tags. more than 5 so that it's got a good spread, less than 10 because otherwise it gets annoying for people. So that's kind of my thing. And the thing I like about Instagram, at least with the app, is that it allows you to then post from Instagram to Twitter and to Facebook, and I get to go from one thing to multiples. I don't have to post multiple times.
Okay.
So that's also something that I really like about it.
So in the new version of Final Cut, we know it's coming out in 2020. We've all said that. We all agree on that. What features, like your top feature? I mean, to me, I want audio improvements. Whatever they do with it, I want less clunky audio. I don't want to be jumping in and out of compound clips to do stuff. What about you guys?
I would like to see simple things like more presets for size presets. So for vertical video and things like those size presets that are in there haven't been updated in 5 or 6 years. It feels like, and they're all based on a 16:9 frame. There's no 1:1. There's no 5:4. There's no 9:16. Having those in a quick pull down menu would be a simple thing that would help a lot of pro users when they're spitting out different things, and also a lot of the professional YouTubers and social media editors that everybody seems to say are the bread and butter of Final Cut. So why they're not there it seems like a lot of things seems a bit silly.
Okay. What about you, Ian?
I don't know. Like there's lots of little things that they could do. I'm not sure what they will do.
Well, just what would you like to see? Because Apple's listening. They listen to this. They'll take your put it right to the top of the list. Whatever you say.
I'm quite sure they will. I would personally just like to see the things which people most want addressed. I want Apple to fix all the little things which people have been saying have been a real thorn in their side for a long time.
Dupe detection?
I didn't say that.
Okay.
Say it twice.
Dupe detection.
That's for Sean.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, until you do a TV show where you really don't want to use the same shot twice, you don't really realize how it's a real pain in the arse if you don't have it. So yeah, look, I'd like them to do stuff like that. I've got plenty of little things, but I would like them to promote Final Cut more. I would like them to shout about it a bit more. Just because, we can only do what we do, chatting about it through our private channels.
Sure.
For so much.
Absolutely.
And, Apple have a great product, which would be great if they shouted out about it a bit more. Because, it's just left to Adobe, who knows how many users they actually have. There's about, I think, 14 million Creative Cloud subscribers, but
how many use Premiere, right?
1 in 10.
Exactly.
How many, like 1 in 10 at most, would use Premiere from that. But yeah, they will advertise Premiere, world's #1 web and whatever editor. It's like, but based on what?
Yeah, exactly.
Based on what? I mean, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. You're not quoting any numbers.
Right.
Apple hasn't quoted numbers for over a year, I don't think. Avid don't quote numbers, and the numbers are small anyway. They're all high end, but they're not very many people. And at the end of the day, who cares? But if Apple don't shout out about it, then we sound like lunatics when we do. So it would be nice if Apple said more
that note,
often.
I got an email today from the ASE, the Australian Screen Editors Guild, and they send out notifications of events and things, and two of their main sponsors are Avid and Adobe in Australia. They put money in there, but the one, and I felt really frustrated by it when I read the email, and it was for a Zoom meeting next week where somebody is going to go through all the top keyboard shortcuts and go through all of those for Avid and Premiere. And you could guarantee that both Avid and Adobe have put in, it might only be a little bit of money, but they've put at least some effort into getting somebody to do that. And seeing the Apple symbol in some of that some of that promotion.
Yeah.
Just the smallest little things to say, hey, we're still here, would go a long way.
Yeah.
How much of that do you think is the result of the quote-unquote Final Cut Pro / Pro Apps team versus Apple in general, who dictates to them? They don't get to dictate to Apple. They dictate to the team. How much do you think, I mean, sometimes it seems like the team is frustrated with decisions that Apple corporate makes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't. I would like to think that it's Apple marketing is the issue. There are a lot of really good people on that Pro Apps team that I would scream from the heavens, from the hilltops, about how good the product is if they were allowed to.
So we had a comment from Ben Bowser. He says, comment on Apple killing off authorized training for Pro Apps when Adobe and Blackmagic have very successful training programs. Well, they killed 10.4 training. Whether that means there's not going to be any training for the next version of Final Cut and Motion and Compressor or not, we don't know for sure. But as trainers, Ian's a trainer, Lee's a trainer, I'm a trainer. It was a horrible program for the last 3 or 4 years. It's been absolutely horrible. So
I would be amazed if it's not dead.
You think so?
Yeah, they've announced that the 10.4 training is dead, but there's no replacement. There's no 10.5 training on the horizon. There's nothing announced. So no, and previously they've never done that. There's always been an overlap.
1 year at least, yes.
And this is the same way that the motion training just vanished.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
So look, personally, as someone who's writing a book on Final Cut Pro, which could take the place of the official Apple textbook, that would be awesome. Please don't write another book, Apple.
Ian's digging the grave.
I'll provide one that you can just put on the resources page, please. I promise it'll be good. Thank you. That'll be good.
Right. Ben says they sent out
It'll
notice.
have really high quality cursor screenshots.
There you go.
Indeed.
They sent out notices that in June Pro App training is dead. They said specifically 10.4 is being retired. They didn't say we're not going to do any Pro Apps training in the future. And I'd be surprised. I mean, I don't see them introducing a new version of Final Cut and having zero training when Adobe has it and Blackmagic has it. They should give it away for free maybe, or have, Future Media Concepts have more specific classes. But I just...
Yeah, I can see it happening though. There's no official motion training book.
That's true. That's true. Well, Motion, but Motion was never that popular, was it? Motion was never that.
But it's at the point now where if you go to the Apple resources page, they promote a third-party Motion book because the Apple one is not current.
I gotcha.
So hey, that same thing could happen. You never know. That could be really cool. Look, I think I think they don't feel they need to offer an official training book. Look, the user guide is very good. It's not a step-by-step training manual. It fills a different need. But look, the user guide stuff is great and the help is good. And obviously a lot of people would prefer to do video training, and there's lots of providers for that. I make some, Lee's made some. There's lots of that stuff out there as well.
I think maybe there's a thought, and look, I've got no idea what the thinking of Apple is or anything like that, and maybe this isn't Apple, but I think maybe there's a thought that there's so much, and if I could make bigger quotation marks, I will. There's so much training on YouTube that what's sort of like the need of more. First of all, the training on YouTube. There's some really amazing, fantastic stuff, but there's also a lot of people who don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Right, right.
So that I think is a big cautionary tale on YouTube training. So if you're going to get training, go to places like Mac Pro Video or Ripple and do Ian's courses or do my courses or do other people's courses, but go to an official training thing. Where the person is certified, hopefully they've read the manual, and I'll give you an example. I did a course last year on a Blackmagic product, and I was just doing a bit of research, like while I was researching it, and there was just one little bit in particular talking about picture profiles and whether they were baked in or not. And everyone on YouTube was going, "Oh, you've got to pick which picture profile to use because it's baked in, and you know it's very important. Like because if you do this, the look is baked in." And I read the manual, and there's like a 2-line thing in the manual that goes, "No, you're fine. If you can use any picture profile while you're shooting, and that just speeds things up in post. But when you bring it into DaVinci Resolve, you can." That look is not baked in any way, shape, or form. And I started thinking maybe I'm wrong and maybe I'm reading it wrong because everyone on YouTube, and they seem very knowledgeable, is saying, no, it's baked in. And I had to actually contact Blackmagic and go, am I wrong or right? And they went, no, you're reading it right. So, and that was a very sort of eye-opening thing for me. It was like, wow, even though like I was watching these YouTube things and thinking, wow, these people really know what they're talking about. And I'm sure they're very right on most things.
Right.
But on this particular thing, if you just read the manual, and it's not a big manual.
Sure.
You know.
You've actually brought up one thing which I want. This is the new feature I want. I want Final Cut to read the metadata which describes the white balance in the camera files, and then offer to color correct to a known white balance based on what the camera actually recorded. Now, it's not going to do that anytime soon, because if you take GH5 files and you drag and drop them in,
right,
the white balance info is still there, but Final Cut can't read it. And there is the third-party program called EVRX, which would turn it into tags. So if you run that on the footage first, it'll turn it into tags. So you can actually get it into Final Cut. Great. But if you use import, the metadata gets stripped out. Final Cut actually actively removes the stuff that it doesn't understand and removes the white balance, so that feature can't be there. But that would mean that you could actually use auto white balance, but then use a feature to deduct auto white balance if you got it wrong, or to, because the white balance adjustment in the color wheels is always starting from, I think, 5000K. Is that right, Lee? Or is it 5.6? Because if you shoot at just that white balance all the time, and your footage is compressed a small enough amount that you could get away with adjustments, then you can just put that temperature, and it's just an absolute control where you want the white balance to be, which would be a neat trick. And if you're shooting ProRes RAW, I think did you ever figure that out, Lee? Did that work?
I never got around to testing it, but you just drag the slider around until it looks good, and you're fine. Yeah, that's it. That works perfectly, sure.
And we also need a RAW inspector for a ProRes RAW, something that has you more access.
Well, this solves that issue. You've got the white.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Richard, because I've thought about that a lot, and because I don't know if you guys have worked with Red Raw before, but like they've got a really cool little interface that you install the plugin and then it comes up and you can change it, adjust your ISO and all that kind of stuff. And it would be nice if that stuff was there in Final Cut, but that stuff is all there. It's just called something else. So you can still do all the stuff that you do in that window that you get with the Red Raw stuff, but it's just it's using terminology that we're not used to with the Red Raw stuff. So yeah, and on the one hand, I could say to the Final Cut team, well, it'd be great if you just called it what everyone else calls it. But on the other hand, at least for me, now I'm used to what Final Cut calls it. So if they change it again, it's you can never please everyone, I suppose.
No,
you can't? Sure you can. Just B-RAW support. B-RAW support. That's
B-RAW support. Yeah, it'd be nice, but absolute white balance controls.
Yes,
and for that,
I agree with you.
Know what the camera recorded. Otherwise, you're just doing a relative change, which is of not much use.
Makes complete sense.
And that you shouldn't need to shoot RAW to do that. Like if I shoot at 5,000 and it was 5.6, then compressed footage can move that far. But I'd like to be able to just dictate, hey, I know the light source here was 5400K, so let's nail that in for this location, and then this location something else. That would be really good.
So what is the auto white balance doing then? It's not using any camera information?
No, it just assesses the shot. So if you have a gray card in shot, then you can use that. So this is all stuff which for lowest end productions, people don't care. And for highest end productions, people shot gray cards as they should have. But for mid-range productions, when you're doing run and gun stuff, when you don't have anything gray or white in shot, and you're doing mixed lighting, people are going to be tempted to use auto white balance, which is, as I'm sure everyone realizes, the path to hell, and and you get into trouble. So yeah, I think it would be nice, just please read the white balance in the files and let Final Cut know, so that the color correction can just be applied as an absolute way rather than a relative way.
That makes complete sense. It just makes you wonder why it hasn't been there up to this point, right?
Is it in any other program? I don't think so. I don't think Premiere can read the white balance in camera files. I don't think this Resolve.
Maybe it's not easy to do.
Oh, come on.
It's right there in the files.
Apple has unlimited money. They have money that most countries don't have.
Yeah, but they haven't put someone on Mars yet. I mean, just because you got all the money doesn't mean you can do it.
That's true.
Yeah, maybe it's very different between different cameras.
No, I understand.
If you poke around in the terminal with EXIF tool, then you can see all the white balance info in any file you care to import, and it's just ignored.
So
I think it would be a challenge with the camera manufacturers, because everyone does everything slightly differently.
I think it's just standard metadata. Like it's the people who make EVRX have versions for like 6 different brands of cameras, so it's pretty widespread. So if you want to do it today, you can do it with a third-party app, but because it's not integrated, you'd still have to do the maths yourself. It's like, okay, well, this was shot at 4900 and it was really 4500, so how do I need to adjust it? And I'm sure it's a nonlinear algorithm you need to follow, so it's we're getting into the weeds of tiny little requests.
Yeah, Matt was falling asleep over there. I saw his eyes were closing. Even he was, between the 4 of us.
Yeah.
So
as someone who doesn't or tries very hard not to do any kind of color grading, it's sort of like 50 for what? Okay, yeah.
Right. I do minimal. I just do minimal, but I spend most of my time in Logic and Final Cut. Those are my audio and just the editing part. I do a little bit of balancing, but I don't have the time for motion. I don't have the time for serious color correction. I don't do anything that goes out to film, so I'm doing okay. Or Hollywood. So is there going to be any collaboration improvements in Final Cut, the next version, do you think?
Just buy PostLab.
Just buy PostLab at this point. Yeah. Just buy PostLab.
Yep, buy them and integrate them.
It would make sense if Apple integrated, built-in collaboration to iCloud. The same kind of thing that PostLab's doing with their servers, do it on Apple servers. That would be awesome and fantastic. Let's do that.
Do you guys remember, was it called iChat Theater? Or
what
was
it
called in Final Cut Pro 7? That was so cool.
Yes, I remember that. I'm kind of surprised they don't have that as well, because that's, have that now after all these years. The internet's so much faster, and, graphics cards are faster. It seemed like it would be a no-brainer.
Yeah. I think can you not feed in like a window or a screen into Zoom or Skype or whatever?
Well, you can. I was screen sharing off of a producer's laptop in London this morning because he was having some Final Cut issues that he said, "Oh, just one of those. Can you just log into my computer and fix it?" So we just use the iChat thing. In it's not called iChat anymore. It's called Messages or iMessage. You can just right click and say, share screen. And so I mean, you can do that, but it wasn't as nifty as iChat Theater was.
Yeah, I think latency is the big deal. And I figured out, actually, if you have one of these little hardware boxes, which I'm using for the GH5, just plug the Mac itself into the hardware input and use the box as an external screen, because that's guaranteed to work. You're just sharing the whole screen, even if it's not supported by any of the software. The screen is your camera then. So, that works. You'd get audio as well. And hopefully that would maybe improve latency issues, but probably not.
So Blackmagic announced the 810 Mini Pro, but they certainly have more announcements than that, right? NAB is this week, supposed to start this week. I mean, it was scheduled. I mean, they're going to have an update to Resolve, for sure. They do every year. They do every NAB. 16.5 or 17, whatever.
Well, again, I wonder if a lot of manufacturers are going to look at it and go, well, since NAB is not happening in the way that it's happening, and we may have had stuff 95% 95% ready. Why don't we wait till it's 100% ready and wait 2 weeks or wait a month? And I think we are going to see quite a few announcements next week. But I also think we're going to see more of a drip feed of announcements over the next 2-3 months that if NAB had been happening would have all happened at NAB, but instead people are just going to drip feed it out.
Yeah, but the Black Magic Resolve was always beta for like a year till the next NAB.
Yeah.
So it always it always was beta.
That's a good point.
Didn't they did a 0.5 update though, didn't they? They changed their release schedule a little over the last 12 months.
Okay.
What about they did a half release, and they decided to shift to the stable release and the experimental release.
Okay.
So yeah, and I think also the pressure's off if they don't have NAB to.
No, I understand, but they probably were, by the time NAB was canceled in March, so at that point everything was probably already, scheduled for their releases, I would think. But for example, if they have a new camera or an update to the 4K or the 6K, that's already done. And once again, that last year they didn't show the battery pack for the 4K. They just showed a mock-up inside of a glass cube. So, so they could show. I think they're going to show something, even though the official NAB virtual thing is in May. I think manufacturers are still going to show stuff this week. So that'll be interesting. A couple of them have already announced it.
Sure.
A couple have already announced it. That they're going to do that. So, but not Apple. Apple didn't announce any.
I hope so, but I mean the thing is, it's not just that the show's not happening and that people's attention isn't there. Is that the people who would be spending money on the gear or getting excited about spending the money on the gear are not spending any money on anything.
Right.
And everything falls apart. It doesn't matter how diversified I am if people aren't wanting to hire me or you guys to do stuff, then we lose business even if we are physically able to do the work. Our clients aren't spending money, and fair enough. So, and I think that's going to be the situation for almost anyone doing stuff at NAB. How do you sell stuff to a TV industry when everyone's at home?
Yeah.
That isn't, an A10 Mini.
Right.
People could use at home to do something like this.
Right. So everybody's jumping on live streaming. Everybody's doing this. The first one I did was, I think it was the Creative Summit, but that was back in the days I was just streaming to Facebook Live. And it was actually a 720 by 720 frame default in Facebook, even though I was filming 16 by 9. And I think that was the first one. It might have been the NAB before that when Luma Forge had their across the street presentation in the hotel. One of those two was the first one that I started live streaming, and I've been honing it ever since. Still not finished. All right, gentlemen, anything else we want to talk about? We know we discussed that the beer in Australia is a good cure for the flu, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd recommend drinking beer.
So that beer is local, produced locally?
Yeah, yep. So this is from a Brisbane brewer called the Ballistic Beer Company. Okay. And they're very nice people. They were interviewed for the doco that I made. So yeah, nice people. They make lots of good beer, and they've got the distribution angle nailed. I think if you're a local beer maker in Australia and you have a cannery, like if you can can your own beer, you'll survive this fine. If you are only selling through your own pub, the pub's shut. So what do you do? It's fine if you're medium sized or above, and if all the people just starting are all unfortunately just out at the moment. Not much they can do.
So Matt, you worked on The Leftovers with David Lindelof when they came to Australia. That was I love that show. But the one thing I want to know is, please tell me that they didn't cancel the fashion show that you do every year. I know it's hard work. I understand it's very hard to do that fashion show, but tell me they didn't cancel that.
It got cancelled. We did 3. So we did Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. We got the first 3 nights of it done, and then an hour before the crew call on the Friday, it got cancelled.
I'll be
so
darned.
The last 2 days of it got cancelled.
Well, at least you have the footage, right?
Yeah, well, we were able to use what we'd shot for the first 3 days, and the actual deliverable this year was for Instagram TV. So we were spitting out formats for them, and then they'll use it for highlights and stuff later on. But the cancellation ended up being fortuitous because a week later there was a report where a confirmed case of somebody who had been working at the festival. So if we'd continued
Right.
for a couple of days, the spread of it would have been
Right.
that would have been worse. So they had and that even the days that they had people affected because there were people that weren't coming in from Italy that would have come in, and so many international designers and stuff coming through. So it was a very strange time as well, because it was right at what felt like the beginning of it here. And to get 3 days in, like at the beginning of the week, we were kind of joking about what was going on and how bad it would be, or what was going on happening, and sort of seeing it from a distance. And then to get the call on Friday to say that it had been cancelled was like, oh, okay, that's that 4 days difference is and everything just snowballed from there. It's made for a very interesting last few weeks, that's for sure.
Yes. All right, everybody. I sure thank you for coming on today. Please be safe. Do all the precautions that they recommend. Everybody, I'm sure, here is doing that.
Absolutely.
Anything in closing, or are we pretty good?
Stay safe, everyone.
Yeah, stay inside. Don't get sick if you can.
Yeah, and try your best to get a bit of exercise and get lots of sleep.
Absolutely. Walking is just fantastic. I do running or walking, either one. Getting out in that sunshine and fresh air, absolutely is one of the best things. People talk about learning a new skill. That's fine, but then you're still sitting in front of the computer. So we break that up with getting out and exercising or walking or whatever. Walking's easy. Go out and walk.
Yeah, mix it up. I guess, read a book, learn how to make some music, hone your skills, get outside, hug your family. Do lots of stuff.
Unless they're showing symptoms, in which case,
do not hug your family.
Do not hug your family.
Indeed.
That's true. That's very true. And take care of your pets. Take care of your dogs and your cats and outside birds. They have to have all this stuff. My cats don't know anything about the virus. Can you imagine? They're just laying around. What virus? We don't know anything about any virus. You feed me and I take naps all day. Nothing's changed for them.
Yeah.
Thanks,
My dog
everyone.
just knows that I'm home more often.
There you go. Exactly. Thanks, everyone. See you again.
There you go.
Cool.
Bye.
See you later.
Thanks, everybody.